Om Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we left off last week. We're in the final verses of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18. And Krishna, where he doesn't normally speak, in the last class mentioned, he asks Arjuna, you've heard this knowledge. Have you heard this knowledge? Has it helped you? Has it helped you? Has it lifted your delusion? Because after all, it's the first time he's asking anything. He doesn't ask all the way through. It's a Q&A, but it's really answers by Krishna and questions by Arjuna. And at the very beginning state, Arjuna was in a demolished state where he couldn't stand. He was total depression. It collapsed in an emotional mess. So when we're stressed, we collapse, our energy gets sapped. So following that, Arjuna replies, Nashto moha, my delusion has been lifted. Perhaps not totally lifted in the sense, but he's gained the knowledge. He's gained the knowledge of how to get back to the self. So he's gained sufficient knowledge to say to himself, I'll do your bidding. Do your bidding meaning I'll do what it takes to get to the self. I've got it now, that knowledge. The delusion's not really lifted, but it's on its way. The first point is that you gain knowledge. So originally, if you remember, it was in a real mess. If you remember those first verses in the chapter 1, my mouth is parched, my knees are knocking, I can't think. All these physical descriptions and emotions were coming out. That Arjuna's thinking, how am I going to fight this battle? And now he's saying, my delusion's gone. So he's gained knowledge. So he's got that faith, that shraddha, to actually move on that Vedantic knowledge. So you help yourself by gaining the knowledge of the technique of living, which this is. And we all presume that we know how to live. But there's no assumption here. There's an understanding that we get sucked into the world and involved. So Arjuna's gained that knowledge. So he's sort of indicating to Krishna, I know exactly what to do now. From being totally helpless to knowing what to do. That's what it can offer you. And then we have to do the rest of it. So the knowledge which we gained here isn't scholastic knowledge. If for one moment we just take this knowledge in and we don't actually use it, it's of no avail to us. There's really not much point. We'll become good scholars. So having looked at it once together, and perhaps maybe some of you may have seen it before, but this is, in the next few verses, it goes again and again. because subtle knowledge, sometimes it can seem very straightforward, but it disintegrates. It's subtle, it disappears. So to put it into practice, I've heard so many people say, this knowledge is great. It's very theoretical. It's great, but it's not for practical use. It isn't for practical use if you keep it scholastic knowledge. So you have to actually be attempting to use it. Then you find the value of this knowledge. And then you can build step by step on the knowledge that you have to make that into your practice. So Arjuna's got the knowledge, and he states it by saying, Nashto Moha. Now, I've been listening to you, Arjuna. I'm firm. My doubts are dispelled, and I'll do your bidding. It's not going to do a service to Krishna. It's actually going to unravel yourself. There's no Mr. Krishna in the sky or anything. Though for the devotional, we often bring about an image, a murti, an idol, so that you can focus your attention on it, because the mind's ever so sticky, it wanders off. So we employ Mr. Krishna, Mr. Vishnu, Mr. Lakshmi, so that we employ all these just to guide ourselves in the right direction. That there's one truth. Brahman, Allah, Father in heaven, call it what you like. Self, moksha, call it any name you want. Truth is truth. So it's trying to get at, I'll do your bidding. I'll get to the truth. I've understood that this is my mission in life, of everyday purpose of what you do in your life is to get to the truth. Nothing more, nothing less. All the in-betweens are just there as your distractions. So we have to keep bringing ourselves back from those distractions. So now we start after Krishna spoke the last verse, and Arjuna has said his piece. And now, as an observation, the narrator, remember this started with Sanjaya, who hardly speaks, but is counsel to the king Dhritarashtra, the blind king Dhritarashtra. The blind king in the sense that we say the blind king because it's symbolic of the mind, how the mind doesn't see what it doesn't want to see. It blocks it out. It'd rather go with the impulses of life. It doesn't face the realities. It doesn't have the capacity to go and be analytical and pitch up on bigger values. It just follows through in that emotion and feeling, which is beautiful if you can refine it, but you need an intellect to do that. So Sanjaya here, the topic is, for the last few verses, Sanjaya glorifies Krishna and his wonderful dialogue. Glorifies the self, in fact. So he's speaking back to Dhritarashtra. Remember, Dhritarashtra is in Hastinapur, the kingdom. And this battle is going on in Kurukshetra. That's the place. So it's like in two different places altogether, miles apart. So there's, in this time, you know, we believe that we're the ones with the gadgets, we're the ones with the technology. We think we have with the advancement. But if you look in the times of the ancient scriptures, there was all those things available. When you look at the Mahabharata, there's all these flying, like nuclear weapon type things going on. So these are not new concepts in this ancient philosophy. Neither was perhaps the internet and this TV, etc. There's lots of indication that there was availability of communication from one place to another. Yet, because as we have gone a different generation, we do not realize, we think, you see, we don't remember what the last generation was about. We're in our own world. So an ancient generation, we find it hard to conceive that they may have known things that we do not still yet know. And then it comes full cycle, as we're doing in chapter 9, where is a creation and destruction, and we start all over again. So fear not, but more of ours is to just evolve ourselves and not get caught up in the peripheries of that worldly sense. So Sanjaya Vacha. Before we start, is there any questions we'll go to here? Sanjaya Vacha. Let's go 74.
Sanjay uvacha ityaham vasudevasya parthasya cha mahatmanah samvadam imam aushrosham adbhutam romaharshanam.
Sam, if you could read the verse.
'74. Sanjaya said, "Thus have I heard this wonderful dialogue between enlightened Vasudeva and Partha, which makes the hair stand on end."
It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what I've heard. Yeah, my hair stands on end. You get goosebumps. Wow. We're at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. I've just heard that. All that, which is to be said to get me to that enlightenment. He's fascinated. It's like hooked. He's like totally absorbed by this. And he's telling Dhritarashtra, the blind king, who actually, if could have heard Sanjaya in the first place, they could have averted the whole battle. Because Dhritarashtra was the one person who had the vision over both of the cousins, sets of cousins, his own sons and his sons or his brother's sons. He was to look after them all as brothers, all as his sons, but he made that distinction. And he didn't want to see what was going on in the battle because he knew what is going to be the outcome. So he couldn't see it. That's why he's blind. We don't want to see the reality of things that could happen, the eventualities. We find it difficult to get on because of our preoccupations to this knowledge of the self. So he was offered the power to see, but he declined it. So Sanjay is here narrating with that special that special eye, that vision of what's going on in, as we said, Hastinapur, Kurukshetra, from Hastinapur. TV, internet, call it what you like. You know, Zoom, FaceTime. It seems that something was available then. I've yet to hear that somebody names an internet after Sanjaya. So we know how it is. You can be watching tennis here. I can be watching it on one screen and you can be watching it on another screen. We both have the same information, as it were. So the thing is to understand this whole macrocosm is a beautiful construction of creation and dissolution. And he clearly visualizes both. And perhaps we see the destruction just around the corner coming. One day of Brahma, one day a night of Brahma. So it could be 50 years, 100 years, 500 years. We don't know. And then we'll be starting back from scratch. So it doesn't matter what iPhone, what whoever it is doing. be gone. We'll be back sharpening stones to light fire, to cut the whatever we can grow. We'll be back at square one. So with this knowledge, if you carry it forward, you have a capacity to use whatever you carry forward. Just imagine there's nothing there. No gas, no water, no nothing. Got to start right from scratch. So Sanjaya has the sight to see. And listen to this knowledge, the wonderful dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna, the master and the student. And he's saying, my hair stands on end. He's talking back to Dhritarashtra. My gosh, this is what I've heard. Let's read it.
The last topic covers 5 verses, all spoken by Sanjaya, counselor of King
Dhritarashtra.
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 He related the whole proceeding of the battle of Kurukshetra to the king. Sanjaya spoke in the very beginning, thereafter briefly in chapter 5.
Chapter 11.
Chapter 11, and now these 5 verses. Iti translated thus marks the conclusion of the Gospel of the Gita. Sanjaya goes into ecstasy, glorifying the wonderful dialogue between Lord Krishna and his endearing friend and devotee Arjuna. Vasudeva, another name of Krishna, literally means the all-pervading spirit. Mahatma indicates the enlightened state of Krishna. Partha is a name acquired by Arjuna as son of Partha, Kunti, who was very dear to Krishna. This combination of a realized master and a loving disciple is stimulating. Hearing their sensational dialogue, Sanjaya is thrilled with his hair standing on end.
So he's also gained that knowledge, and it's, oh my gosh, wow, what have I just got? Sometimes you're sitting with Swamiji and you think, oh my gosh, some penny just drops. You have that privilege to just gain an insight. So we've had 18 chapters. Wow. Rare is it that one has the opportunity to look at this type of knowledge and then reflect on it and then use it. Wow. And somewhere in between, you get an insight within yourself, listening to the master and the student. You know, I was getting stories back a few weeks ago from my colleague, Joseph, in India. He was sitting with Swamiji and one other student. And Swamiji was talking about Upanishads. And Joseph was narrating me back the stories. I was listening to his narration. I was going, wow, it's that extra insight. It's fantastic. It gives you see, it's got to do something for you. Otherwise, it's just words. But when you're reflecting on those thoughts, you think, oh my God, it's about that. You might have heard it 100 times in different forms and shapes. You think, oh my God, it's that. Wow. This is Sanjaya's feeling. Perhaps more. And we're at the end now. Must we also continue to evolve ourselves? Let's go.
Got a quick question.
Mm.
I don't know if my memory is correct or not, but I seem to remember that Sanjaya was against Arjuna. No? And he was narrating to the blind king.
So he's a neutral factor.
Okay.
In the sense everybody got appointed in their different sides. Remember at the very beginning, Arjuna and Duryodhana both had opportunities to decide upon what they wanted in their armies, yes, or their battalions, whatever it was, for the fight. And Arjuna chose Krishna, unarmed, with no battalions, so just whatever he had. And Duryodhana chose Krishna's army. So all the people on Krishna's army, there were people like Dronacharya, Bhishma. Those are the highest caliber warriors, the teachers, people before realization. So all they were doing is their karma to finish off their vasanas, to realize. Which side they're on really doesn't matter. It's immaterial. What's important is they fulfill their last vasanas. And Arjuna collapsed because he thought, oh my God, I'm facing my nearest and dearest. How can I do this? He got emotional and personal. Now Sanjaya is the narrator, equally the best friend of Arjuna, but he's got a role to play with the blind king, Dhritarashtra. He's his counsel. So everybody plays their role. All the world is a stage. We each have our roles and our exits and our entrance. Shakespeare says something as such. So we all have roles. There's no goods and bad. We just need to play them, whatever it may be, and get out. We're just on that path of evolution. Every sinner and saint has an upland the same. There's no difference. So your job is to get on. Judge not others, resist not evil. Just get on with your role. We don't know why somebody does what or what the effect is. Get on to what you're supposed to be doing. Part of that is you evolve the good in you, but you have to go beyond that. Good is just relative to bad. Your good may be somebody's bad, etc. You've got to get out of that even. So Sanjay is a neutral factor. He's doing the job. And in actual fact, he is sort of siding with the Pandavas. He knows what is the right and wrong. And he even in the beginning tries to convince Dhritarashtra to actually, come on, do you not see what's happening? You're in the capacity, they're your sons. You can stop it. But Dhritarashtra is so concerned with his blood sons rather than his brother's sons who's he's adopted, that he wants the kingdom. He's got that greed, that he takes a blind eye to it. And he says, my sons and Pandus in the first few verses, an otherness. Whereas Sanjaya has a totally different approach in that narration. He's trying before the battle begins to get them out of it so it doesn't start. But it doesn't happen. So he's there doing a job. Sometimes we have to do a job even if we don't like somebody or something. We do our duty.
Thank you.
Let's go.
व्यासः प्रसादश्रुतवान् एतत् गुह्यमहं परम् योगेश्वरात् कृष्णात् साक्षात् कथयत स्वयम्.
Guru, if you could read this.
Verse 75. By the grace of Vyasa have I heard this secret, the supreme yoga declared directly by the Lord of Yoga, Krishna himself.
So Vyasa is the great sage the author of the Bhagavad Gita. So Vyasa actually offered Dhritarashtra the sight because he could see the writing on the wall, but Dhritarashtra declined. So by the grace of Vyasa, he's saying that we're hearing this knowledge. Sanjay is saying, I hear this knowledge. Swayam Narayan, of that enlightened one, none other than the Supreme Self. We're getting the knowledge from. That's what he's kind of indicating. So Sanjay had a brilliant intellect. So it's giving a blind person that intellect in some sense. Sanjaya means that intellect, as it were. So by the grace of Vyasa, the supreme yoga directed by Yogeshwara. Yogeshwara is another name for Krishna. There's so many names. In a way, if we don't get it by all the names, there's different slants on the names, meaning all these different names are names and forms, but they just mean one truth, that enlightened one. So, by the grace of Vyasa, we've heard the secret, the supreme yoga, declared directly by the Lord. So with Vyasa offering that knowledge directly of what the Lord says, as it were. The authors made it available, but it's like we're getting it from the Lord, the Self itself. It's like that. It's going forward. What more could you ask? That's a belief. What more could you ask? The belief comes back to if you use it. Forget if it's true or not. If you use it, you come to believe in something because it makes sense to you. This is the right thing for evolving me. Nobody's saying blindly. It's being analytical of your emotion and your intellect. And have the two together. So let's have a read.
Sanjaya, thrilled by the soul-stirring dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, acknowledges Vyasa's grace. Sage Vyasa had given Sanjaya the power to view the battle scene in Kurukshetra while he sat with King Dhritarashtra in Hastinapura. This gift had enabled Sanjaya to listen to the wonderful dialogue. He now bows to Vyasa with gratitude for the privilege of hearing the supreme yoga from the Lord himself. Yoga means union, derived from its root yuj, to join. Human beings in ignorance have separated from their real self. Yoga, therefore, is the process of regaining one's essential being, the mission in life for which a human is born. Hence, the knowledge that helps unfold the self within is considered supreme yoga, said to be a secret because of it not being known. Another feature that stands out in the message of the Gita is that it has been imparted by the Lord himself, the Lord of Yoga, an enlightened soul. Hence, his supreme knowledge in the Gita is complete and practical for human evolution.
So, all our job is to get back to the truth. In any of your perceptions, your emotions, your thoughts, whatever you do in your activities from day to night, it's just that one mission. Everything else is a distraction. So we have to pursue our vasanas just to get back. With the thought of that supreme self within. We've been offered the knowledge. Such a privilege. Let's go.
Rajan samsmritya samvadam imam adbhutam keshavarjunayo punyam rishyami cha muhurmuhu taccha samsmritya rupam ati adbhutam hare विस्मयो मे महान् राजन् हृष्यामि च पुनः पुनः.
Tamara, if you could read the
Verse 76. O King, remembering again and again this wonderful and holy dialogue between Keshava and Arjuna, I rejoice again and again.
It's full, he's reveling in it, as we should be. Unfortunately, it's coming to the end. But really, the end is just the beginning. It's when you begin to start to do it. And in our case, we will take the next text. But it shouldn't be idle. It should be, with what we gained here, to carry forward, to move on what we need to do. So Sanjay is talking to Dhritarashtra and remembering Smriti. Remember again and again the beautiful dialogue of Arjuna and Krishna. Very rare and seldom does one have a Q&A in this sort of knowledge. So we get the opportunity to hear Arjuna's questions and to hear the answers. Especially if you remember across the board it is, but if you remember in Stita Prajna in chapter 2, who's an enlightened soul, where are you going to find that in this type of knowledge? Yes, in Upanishads it's all over, written all over, but Bhagavad Gita's considered a little bit lower, but for us it's a little bit higher. Yeah. So we're getting that knowledge of who is the realized person. What does it take? How does he walk? How does he speak? How is the behavior internally, externally? We're getting those questions from Arjuna, and Krishna's then answering in the thought that we will be inspired from the very beginning to reach that truth. And so it goes on and on, the chapters one by one. There's 18 chapters, 18 yogas to consider what we need to do. Ever we should slip up, there's one thing to our own personality traits to come back to, whoever we are. So this beautiful dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna, such a privilege to have it. One's hair stands on end. Krishna speaking on a battlefield of the most unlikely of places. You know, can you imagine in the wars that are going on, some fellow like Krishna comes and starts giving some, well, really, forget the physical wars. Start with the war and the battle of mental mind and intellect squabbles, which is going on in one's own mind. So there's a Krishna within us, a truth within us, which observes our battle of good and bad. And we have to overcome our negative tendencies, employing our positive, higher values again and again. So this has been told to us again and again in this dialogue. So in this verse, it's approaching again and again. We should take in this knowledge, an intellectual stance, this literature, most exhilarating. So you put in the effort to be religious, in the sense you join back to your truth, to be a philosopher in the vein that you, one who loves truth, seeks wisdom, a lover of truth, to be a Vedantin, to get to that culmination of wisdom, Veda and the knowledge to the end. So the whole knowledge is not about some script in some dead book. It's about the words, which is about your life and living, the dialogue which is going on. And therefore, when you gain the knowledge, one reflects, contemplates, makes it one's own. Rajas, remember again and again the words of Krishna he's trying to put forward. Rejoice. Not rejoice by reading it, rejoice by thinking, when you're in your morning study and reflection, you get that, wow, And let it percolate through your day and make it such. Again and again. Again and again. Why does he say again and again? What do you think?
I believe this is more of a reflection that it represents here, Parulji. I guess I think apart from the verses that we hear, I think there's a lot more reflection that we need to do on these ones. So I think this is going to be ever relevant.
So again and again. Good, so
It
constant.
could be because what he heard is so great that he's at loss of words to explain the greatness of what he's heard. So he's just repeating again and again, as if, he's kind of sharing his emotions of how elated he's feeling, how blessed he's feeling. So sometimes, we're at loss of words and we keep repeating the same thing again and again. So it could be that Sanjaya was so enthralled and so exalted that he probably said some smritya.
So at an emotional level, he keeps going. At an intellectual level, it's like again and again, varam varam, it says in the Braja Govinda. You repeat, it's subtle. If you don't repeat, it will disappear. So on the other side, you're so smitten by it. You think, oh, wow. And the other side is that I need to reflect on it and make it mine. In the sense of mine means all of ours, not mine self-centeredly.
But it could also mean, the knowledge that was imparted in this was so subtle. It is a reminder to us that you need to keep repeating it. Otherwise, the subtlety is so subtle that you will lose it. When you're in the class, you understand, and then you try and regurgitate what you learned in the class and you've forgotten it. You have to go revisit the text to read it again and then reflect on it. So probably Sanjay is giving us a message here to say, do it again and again. Read it again and again.
So it's not blindly, but it's reflect on it. This verse is talking about the intellectual material intellectually. Reflect on it again and again till you digest it. Chew on it in the morning. Actually, a very nice way, which we had at one stage, is you take in this knowledge, then we have a group discussion, which is really important because you get an opportunity to reflect on it, bring the ideas, and then that sits with you. And then you draw it out of yourself, but the knowledge is subtle, so it easily disintegrates. So again and again, we need to think about it. What we think we got it, and then it's gone. Okay.
It's also undermining our sense of time, that this knowledge, this truth, this wisdom is timeless.
Yes. It's nothing to do with the remits of what we're in. It's trying everything to hit hard, to be that dream lion, to get us out of this illusion. There's still more. My delusion is gone. It's only just begun. We got to put in the effort to get out of it. We got the information. Now we've got to do something with it. So, what he means, I've got the knowledge now. At least I've got to start. 77. Let's read it.
Verse 77. And remembering again and again that most wonderful form of Hari, great is my wonder, O King, and I rejoice again and again.
So in this part, similar to the last part, here he's taking a devotional stance, because we're all different combinations of a personality. We're active, we're devotional, we're intellectual. This particular text is catering to a person of action. Arjuna is an archer, a person of action. But within that, you need devotion and intellection. You need knowledge to back your actions. And you need to oil your knowledge with emotion. Devotion is what makes you human and move forward. Otherwise, it becomes very cut and dry and difficult. So remember again and again, if you're a devotional person, we had, which chapter was it? Chapter 11, Vishwarupa Darshana. So somebody sees that cosmic form of Krishna. You know, all over India, you've got temples and things. You walk in the street, you've got a temple there. Even here, we have churches everywhere. If you begin to observe, remind you of something higher, something higher, something higher. So Vishwarupa Darshana, the Krishna appeared as a cosmic form and a microcosmic form within and out in a form. So for the devotional persons who can't really reflect easily on the literature or the knowledge, they need that grand display, that murti. So for those who can't understand the material, they get that form and they think, oh my gosh, wow. Like all the stories, an apparition in the sky, something beyond your intellect that you can't conceive. You're, oh wow. You know, sometimes you look at paintings, I've seen it in paintings, certain masters, and you look at the light and you think, oh my God, wow, it conjures up something beyond emotionally. So whatever it may be, that murti, for the devotional, emotional people, a wonderment. So when you think about it, a spiritual aspirant truly develops the mind and the intellect. So if you're an intellectual, you must feel what the mind feels. You must be able to comprehend what the mind's feeling. And the intellect must be able to, the mind must be able to feel what the intellect comprehends. And the intellect must be able to feel what the mind comprehends, vice versa. So a confluence of both, in whatever proportion your personality is, gives that spiritual awakening. It's not flat, dead, and cut and dry, and it's not fully just emotional with no direction. It's the ability of your subtle intellect to project something beyond this world, and the mind to have that feeling, that humanity. The confluence of the two enables that awakening, that rejoice. So it's a blend of your head and your heart, that spiritual unfoldment. Sanji gives an example. When you want to cut steel, you've got to use oil. So you cut through the steel, you use your intellect to cut through that ignorance, the steel. But you've got to put the oil of emotion to cut that ignorance, as it were. You see it all over life. You just have to start observing. I was cycling on my bike. I can see my bike chain is rusty. If I don't do something, that will rust and break. I have to oil it to make it go smoothly. We need emotions to make our work go smoothly. But we need the intellectual, the mechanics, the analysis, the reason and logic to back what we're doing so we don't fall down in an emotional mess. So, to those who comprehend the material, the intellectual, and those who need the form, comprehend it emotionally, the bhakta, or both need a bit of both, in truth. We're a combination of all three. One may be more predominant than the other. So here he's mentioning giving us the value of the intellect and the emotional side, confluence of the two. Great wonder, rejoice again and again. It's almost like a bhajan, a hymn. Rejoice again. Remind yourself again and again of what privilege we've got now. Don't just remind ourselves, use it. You go to the final verse of the Bhagavad Gita.
And let me read the
commentary, yes.
Sanjaya speaks to Dhritarashtra, utilizing the divine form of Lord Krishna and his wonderful message, how he remembers and rejoices over it again and again. Sanjaya literally means well victorious, indicating a self-controlled individual. Dhritarashtra was blind. Sanjaya represents an intelligent, disciplined person, and Dhritarashtra an ignoramus, a subtle suggestion for the intelligent to educate the ignorant on the value of this great sermon. Verse 76 brings out the importance of studying the brilliant dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. Whereas verse 77 speaks of devotion to the wonderful form of the Lord as revealed in chapter 11. Remembering over and over again implies the necessity for a seeker to apply himself constantly to spiritual practice. Spiritual discipline is not part-time, it is a full-time attunement to the superior being. Spiritual study and devotion is a confluence of head and heart, an ecstasy which Sanjaya now experiences, a state acquired through inner rehabilitation, through proper development of mind and intellect, and ultimately transcending their limitation. The intellect must comprehend the truth, the mind surrender to the Supreme Being. This exercise has to be constant. Then the seeker revels in the spiritual discipline through his path to enlightenment.
So our job is nothing but to strive on the path to enlightenment, which means all that we have in these chapters we must start to think about and get on to. What did he explain in the first chapter? What the stresses of how you've fallen. Then in the second chapter explains the yoga of knowledge, sthita prajna. Third chapter, karma yoga, the right action and the impediments to action. Fourth chapter, the 12 yajnas, the whole cycle of activities and how you can serve. Brilliantly done. Fifth chapter, who's a yogi, a tyagi, a sannyasi. Sixth chapter, meditation, if you got there, and not before all of that preparation, but that final stage of single-pointed concentration. Seventh chapter, the yoga of knowledge and wisdom. Just don't take knowledge as like a jignasu, your curiosity. Take that in, reflect, make it your own, and gain wisdom, knowledge and wisdom. The eighth chapter is talking about all the different punyas, papas, brahmaloka, swargaloka, all the different stages that you go through of your merits and not great deeds. You've got to get beyond that. You've got to get kramamukti or brahmalok. You've got to go beyond. Chapter 9 that we're doing in Wednesday, the yoga of royal secret, royal knowledge, royal secret, only because it's not known. We're talking about the self. Chapter 10, the supreme manifestation, and chapter 11, Vishvarupa Darshana. I'm just going through it. All this is being offered to us. These are the devotional aspects. Chapter 12, Bhakti Yoga, yoga of devotion and motion. The whole fad is about action and devotion in all management courses. These are just 2 chapters here. In the whole of the Bhagavad Gita, just 2 of them. Bhakti Yoga. Chapter 13, the knower, the field and that which is to be known, the know of the field. Kshetra, Kshetrajna. 13, who's a jnani. And 13 too, the qualities of a bhakta and jnani fall in these 2. Chapter 15. Chapter 14 gives the distinction of gunas. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, what are personality charts? I'm just reeling off in case we've forgotten what we've learned in all of these. In chapter 15, that supreme knowledge of Uttama Purusha, beyond Kshara, Akshara, perishable, imperishable. There's something else you can't forget about. Got to go beyond that perishable, imperishable. Something beyond that we're seeking, that X, which we're calling God. It's beyond that. Don't fixate with that. Go beyond it. What is divine and demonical? He makes it more practical. The goods and bads. We've got to get on off the demonical, the desire-ridden activities. Get on to the divinity, the divine values, the meritorious activities, and go past that. Don't get hooked with punya. And how do you do that? 17, Shraddha, Dhanam, Yajna, Tapaha. By Shraddha, having consistency of purpose and faith in the higher. By giving Dhanam, offering, not taking. By Yajna, service and sacrifice and cooperative. Channelizing your energies, Tapaha, to that self. And in chapter 18, finally where we are, he mentions who's the sannyasi, who's the yogi, summarizes a big long chapter, gives what the caste system was about, which is normally totally demolished, but the truth of it, and then sets us upon sattva, rajasic, tamasic traits of our personality, action, actor, intellect, dhruti, steadfastness, happiness, and renunciation. All the different values of those lower qualities to the most refined, which sattva, which will take us on that path to realization. In a Q&A. If by that we're not going, oh, I don't know what. Okay, so let's continue.
Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhanah, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhuter Dhruvanidhi Madi Mama.
Sam, if you could read the verse. Final concluding verse.
Yes, verse 78. Wherever Krishna, the Lord of Yoga, is, and Partha, the archer, is, there arises prosperity, victory, glory, and sound policy. That is my conviction.
So sounds a bit business-like. Final concluding, but he's getting you onto it. So spiritual knowledge is as much business as spiritual. It encompasses everything, basically. So famous, oft-quoted verse. So wherever there's Krishna, meaning yoga, joining with the self, as we're separated from that self. So all the philosophy, religion, yoga is to get back to that self. Whatever your business is. The Lord of Yoga is Krishna. He's talking about that self-realized soul. The archer is Arjuna, a person of action. So that knowledge and that action put together brings about that highest spiritual evolution, the combination of knowledge and action. So it's not a passive, just pray and do nothing. It's proactive. Pursue the higher values. You've got to pursue the higher values, either in your community or of your person, but it takes effort. And these higher values become noble when you put them into practice. So something without no values won't get anywhere. Whether it be in the material or spiritual, you have to have something bigger. Even those people who are successful in business have got some bigger goal. even if it's material. So you've got to be an active as a warrior in what you do, that Arjuna. Put in that effort. And to gain that Shri, prosperity, Vijaya, success, you've got to have a consistent endeavor. You've got to use that buddhi to become successful in whatever you base upon, do. So it has sound policy, it puts here. It sounds like we're reading something not spiritual, but it's spiritual. You've got to have sound policy. If people could use the Bhagavad Gita in their politics, where would we be? It could not be for personal aggrandizement. It'd flourish. So it means with sound reason and judgment, which can't be self-interest. So peace and prosperity don't seem to tend to appear together. You either have the prosperity and there's a lot of stress, or you have peace and there's nothing going on. Well, here's a combination of dynamic action backed by higher values of knowledge. That's the Bhagavad Gita. That's what it's talking about. So the combination of the two, knowledge and action, sound policy with reason and logic, you act with reason and logic, provides peace and prosperity if done correctly. So we have to put in the effort. So we don't shy away in any material or spiritual. It's all one and the same in the end. Doesn't matter in the Bhajagovindam, yoga or bhoga. Doesn't matter if you're in the world or if you're in yoga and contemplation. It's all the same. It's where your thoughts lie, which is important. On that, we conclude. Let's read it. Yeah, we are a little bit over, but we can finish here.
Another famous verse declaring the beneficial effect of combining spiritual knowledge and action in the world.
Right.
Yogeshvara means Lord of Yoga, Master of spiritual discipline. Dhanurdhara means archer, a champion of action. Yogeshvara Krishna and Dhanurdhara Arjuna together signify the importance of combining spiritual education with action, performing obligatory duty with knowledge of higher values. Living such a life would produce Shri, prosperity, material wealth. Vijaya, meaning victory, success in whatever field one is engaged in. Glory, outstanding achievement. Sound policy, a perfectly disciplined life based on proper reason, judgment, and sound discipline. The environment and people benefit by such discipline and methodic functioning.
So required material or spiritual doesn't matter to keep your peace and prosperity. Let's conclude. Let's read the Gita concludes
The
thus.
Gita,
Yes.
Sherry, the Gita thus concludes with a firm conviction that spiritual knowledge and dexterity of action must go together. You then gain peace and prosperity. In this world, rarely do action and peace coexist. One class of people is active, productive, and prosperous, but such people lose their peace of mind, whereas another class of people is relatively peaceful but not active, productive, prosperous. Thus, action and peace seem to allude to each other. The Lord gives the technique of combining dynamic action with perfect peace. The last verse in the Gita ends with the word mama, meaning my. The first verse in the very beginning started with the word dharma. Dharma means essential being, referring to the Supreme Self, Atman. Thus, the message of the Bhagavad Gita is contained within these two words, dharma, mama, my essential being, my Supreme Self. It implies that this great knowledge in the Gita will help discover your essential being, realize your Supreme Self. Amen.
That's it. Om, Amen, Amen, all the same. The prefix to the truth. And here we have the knowledge to get to the truth. It's telling us.
Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Moksha Sannyasa Yogo Nama Ashtadashodhyayaha.
That is real. Thus, in the Upanishads of the glorious Bhagavad Gita, the science of the eternal, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, ends the 18th chapter entitled The Yoga of Liberation Through Renunciation.
So we conclude the 18th chapter, the end of the Bhagavad Gita. And in the tradition, we will read the first verse of the 18th chapter to acknowledge that we've not completed. And we will do the first, but let's start the first verse of chapter 18, Arjuna Vacha.
Arjuna Vacha Sannyasasya Mahabaho Tattvam Ichchami Veditum Tyagasya Cha Hrishikesha Pratakeshina Sudana. Dhritarashtra Vacha Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samvedayuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya.
That's great. Well, let's go one more time. Arjuna Vacha, chapter 18. And then we'll read the commentary and do one again.
Arjuna Vacha Sannyasasya Mahabaho Tattvam Ichchami Veditum Tyagasya Cha Hrishikesha Pratakeshini Sudana.
Guru, if you could read, Arjuna said, the translation.
Arjuna said, I wish to know distinctly, O Mahabaho, the truth of sannyasa, renunciation, O Hrishikesha, and of tyaga, relinquishment, O Keshini Sudana.
So now let us read chapter 1, verse 1. Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre.
Dhritarashtra Vacha Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samvedayuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya.
Tim, if you'd like to complete, Dhritarashtra said.
Verse 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. Dhritarashtra said, assembled on the sacred field of Kurukshetra, desirous to fight, what did the sons of Pandu and mine do, O Sanjaya?
So as we ended, we also begin. This is the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita for us. Now we must go and fight the battle. The battle is very much not outside, it's within. And we have the humility to acknowledge that we've not yet gone very far. We're students of the truth. So let us continue. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Paralji.
We'll
Hari
take a
Om.
break from Monday class, Paralji, till you return from the academy and then start a new text or continue Bhagavad Gita.
So what we will be doing is we will be having a break. We may have something when I'm in India. We'll call one class when I'm in India, but that will depend on internet. And it may be just to see the academy. It may be just to recap what's happening there. So at the moment, just to let you know, I'm going there from the 22nd. I'll be there for the month, a little bit over. And we'll begin class at the end of February, first week of March. We'll either be doing Bhaja Govindam or the Fall of Human Intellect, one or the other. So we'll be also doing an evening class, which will be one or the other. So some of the people can make it in the evening, so we'll be doing that. So we conclude for now. I'll be there in India at the academy. Just for your information, Swamiji had a fall, so he's not greatly okay at the moment. So just to let you know that that's what's happening. But he always pulls through. But he's at 97. And I urge you all to experience that environment of the academy. It's just really worth elevating yourself. When we've read something like this, get yourself in an environment to do that. So we'll resume in March. Hari Om. And we will we will text on the WhatsApp to them in the middle.
Thank you, Balaji. Thank you.
Hari Om.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.